Well, that was certainly a year, wasn't it?
Everyone went bonkers for a few arena tours. Unions stood up to the big dogs. The big dogs said some shit back like, hey, you know everyone, can you just stream Star Wars? Twitter became X. X became the letter that reminds us of the Tesla prick. The UK got a new obscenely rich person in a crown. Half the world said genocide might be fine, actually. And Andre 3000 made a flute album. I definitely could have ordered that a bit better, but you know, the flute kind of rips. I can't lie. We're not talking about that though, are we? This is a video about cinema. A video about popcorn buckets that look like fleshlights. It's not that either, actually, but you saw that, right? That was weird. We're here to talk about all the films that made 2023 a bit of a banger. 10 of them, actually, if you want to be specific. First things first, I'm UK based, which means what? All of our release dates suck and it's not fair. Not the catchiest song, I'll let you off. So every year I wait to the end of January because it's us Brits month for catching up on things that everyone else got earlier. And I don't know, I always feel like there's gonna be that one film that I haven't seen yet that's gonna slip in last minute. And my friends, how's this for an ASMR teaser? Yeah, that felt weirdly seductive for the beginning of a 2023 list. Let's move on. But technically some of these films may well have got 2022 releases somewhere else in the world, and likewise, there's a bunch of films I saw courtesy of film festivals that may not be getting a full UK release until much later in 2024. Basically, I don't know what the rules are anymore, and I don't know how much we need to explain this to everyone every time we do a top 10 list. Also, no honourable mentions here. There's nothing honourable about not being good enough, right? Coffee, get in me now. Number 10, not just how I'd rate myself out of comfort while I sit on this unreasonably cozy beanbag right now, also the first of 10 numbers in the video. This is the spot on the list that keeps me up at night the most, because every time you put a new film in the list, you're budging one out. And every time that's happened, I've been like, oh, I would have loved to have had that in my top 10 because it was such a cracker of a film. Passages from Ira Sachs. What a film. Let's just get that straight out of the bat. It's about a gay couple played by Ben Whishaw and Franz Rogowski who, how should we say, have their relationship thrown into a bit of turbulent waters. Is probably the calmest and nicest way of putting it. Also starring Adele Exarchopoulos, who I'm a massive fan of. I think this kind of trio of performances here works so well together in the film and is part of the main reason why it's so watchable and entertaining and engrossing, despite the fact that you're watching a central character who is just terrible. And it makes for an incredibly complex film that kind of floats around so many different tones and ideas and ends up becoming really quite moving and powerful, I think, in the end. There's a lot of fantastic work here from Ben Whishaw in particular. It's not the first time I'm going to sit here and say I love him as an actor, but I love him as an actor. And his performance in Passages, probably one of my standout male performances of the year, I've got to be honest. Also, if you're the sort of person who watches films and goes, hey, I want his jumper, make sure you're sat down for Passages, all I'm going to say. 9. Not just what I'd answer if you asked me in German whether I thought Saltburn was worth a watch or not, but also our next stop on this list. This one was one of my favourite sort of surprises. It just kind of came out of nowhere in the year and it's kind of held its ground in the top 10 for a fair few months. It's Sebastian Silva's Rotting in the Sun, which is a film I don't want to say too much about because if you haven't seen it, you need to go in as blind as you can. But it's just such a delicious mix of satire, comedy, drama, and some kind of surprisingly moving bits as well. It stars its own director, who is the director in the film making a film about its star, who also plays himself, Jordan Firstman, who is an influencer online who got quite big over COVID, I believe. I hadn't seen any of his stuff before, but it's so much fun, and it just ends up being this wonderful kind of tight little dark comedy that never overstays its welcome, but ended up leaving me just immensely satisfied. Lots of penis. Let me tell you, if you thought Saltburn was on the upper end of the wow, this is crazy spectrum, maybe just skip this one. Hey, remember when I said that there was a film that snuck in last minute because I did wait through January to do this list? Bingo, number 8. Blue Jean is an amazing British drama that is 100% my shit, and I'm frankly annoyed at myself that it took so long to get around to watching it. But it's a story of a PE teacher working during the time of Thatcher's prime ministerial reign in Britain, specifically around the time of Section 28, a clause in government legislation that wanted to prohibit the teaching of homosexuality in schools. And this film perfectly taps into the way that legislation like this and society's kind of views on things can really crush an individual down. And Rosie McEwen's central performance here is so good and is absolutely part of the reason why it pulls all of that off so perfectly. But it's also one of my favorite shot films of the year. I just think it was a gorgeously photographed film. I love the texture that comes from the film stock used, and I think that all adds to the kind of period feel of this film, but also a very crushing watch. Definitely not one to watch if you want a big fun night in front of the TV. Wow, would you look who's joined us? It's number 7. Wasn't actually sure if I was going to do this joke, but here we are. We're not continuing that. Let's go somewhere else. Seven is another one of those films that kind of came out of nowhere for me and then immediately stuck itself into the list. It is also one of those films that's yet to have a full cinema release here in the UK, but it's still in the list because it's so goddamn good. And that is Paradise is Burning. Mika Gustafsson's directorial debut. It's about three young girls in Sweden who are growing up by themselves, living life on their own terms because their mother is no longer in the picture. The direction here from Gustafsson is just so energetic, and actually every part of the film is filled with this really kind of chaotic, scrappy energy, which at first I wasn't sure if I was going to vibe with entirely, but actually ends up becoming such a key part to why the film feels so good. It's so great to watch these characters interact with each other in such a natural and fluid way. And I believe mostly this is their first time acting on screen, which is kind of crazy when you watch the film because the level of performance that Gustafsson's able to pull out from these three young actresses feels so wildly lived in that you would be forgiven for thinking they'd been in front of the camera many times before. I'm at a desk now, but to quote any old age pensioner with a hearing aid accidentally stumbling into the red light district at any given night in a year, did someone say 6? May December is a wonderful, wonderful film that as soon as I saw it, I just immediately fell in love with, and I knew it was getting somewhere on the list. Where, you may ask? 6, obviously. Are you that dense? There's been a lot of discourse online after the film's release about whether or not it's serious or campy or silly. And the answer is you're all being silly, it can be both, and it does both of those things spectacularly. It helps that it's got amazing performances from everyone involved, but it also has a tone which is so singular and unique to itself that is very difficult to pull off. But of course someone like Todd Haynes comes along and just makes it look effortless because he's a fantastic director. And within like 5 minutes of the film, Julianne Moore delivers one of the best lines of the year about hot dogs. So yeah, I'm thinking it's in the list. For number 5, we're heading outside. Nope, way too cold. Number 5 is, I think, off the top of my noggin, the film that's clung on the longest in this list. I think I saw it back in May and it has just stayed in the top 10 ever since I saw it. This one is Davy Child's Return to Seoul, which is another film which I didn't have a huge amount of expectations for before seeing it, and just it quickly blew me away in many ways. It's a story of a French local going back to Korea to try and trace her birth parents, and it is just a really captivating character study, and is again a film which isn't afraid to show a character like this in all of her many different facets and qualities. And I just really loved seeing a character like this on screen, flaws and all. I think it makes for such an absorbing watch, and Davy Child's direction here as well really helps you along on the journey with this character. Also, for my money, has absolutely one of my favorite sort of bar dance sequences in a film from 2023, which I admit is an already quite niche category, but it's got to count for something, eh? Number 4 is also a film which I saw in 2023 that I thought was good. Anatomy of a Fall. Goodness gracious, this film was good. Rocked me a little bit, you might say. I'm an absolute sucker for a French courtroom drama, but I'm also an absolute sucker for Sandra Hüller. Good grief, she's a fantastic actress, and her performance in Anatomy of a Fall is just sublime. One of the better performances of the year. I think there's no argument on that front. Just an absolutely delicious exploration of the way that people's perceptions about other people shape evidence in the justice system and shape the way that people perceive other people within certain situations. It's an infinitely more layered and nuanced and just absorbing look at a woman who may or may not be falsely accused in a trial than I expected given its premise when I heard about it originally. Back at the desk again. Sometimes you get lazy about shots. Get over it, Michael. Number 3, or as the Americans like to call it, number 3. Any year where there's a Scorsese film, he's walking into this top 10, isn't he? He's turning up. You don't even need to ask. Get in here, Martin. Killers of the Flower Moon was, of course, his latest feature, and man, this was an absolutely brilliant piece of cinema. I'm obviously a big fan of Martin Scorsese epics. This one is a 3.5-hour-long look at the massacre against indigenous people back in the day in America, and it's got a great cast of people who are all delivering stellar performances to bring this story to light. And if I'm honest, it's a story that I had not much clue about before going into the film. And I think Martin Scorsese does a fantastic job of keeping the perspective on the right page in order to illuminate a lot of the things that happened during this time period and that are still being felt today. Amazing stuff, and honestly, the second quickest 3.5 hours I spent in front of a screen in 2023. What's number 1, you ask? Obviously the 3.5 hours I spent on TikTok repeatedly watching the videos his daughter was putting up of Martin Scorsese saying things like daddy and I don't know, guessing lingo online. Old people, eh? Funny as And then there were 2. Recently, I've been much more into slower films that aren't afraid to take as long as they need to patiently explore whatever it is they want to explore. Your kind of Sunday afternoon, 3 hour, sit on the sofa, properly sink into a film kind of film, right? Enter Pacifiction, Albert Serra's latest film, which I knew was 100% my shit almost immediately. Like, remarkably quickly, I was fully on board with this thing. It's set on the island of Tahiti and follows a French government official who acts as this kind of in-between for all the different parties on the island. He's there to keep everyone satisfied and keep everything sort of moving on as it needs to, in light of certain political developments that end up coming up throughout the runtime here. It's a very slow burn, kind of slow cinema version of a political thriller, if you want to call it that. And it has this amazing central performance from Benoit Magimel in the lead here as a government official. But moreover, it's just got this insane photography to it all. Like, it has 5 of probably the best shot and realized sequences I've seen in a film all year. The film itself is kind of just a dude talking to various other people for about 3 hours. But I promise you, it's infinitely more absorbing than that does sound on paper. It's actually one of only 2 full 5 stars that I gave to a film in 2023. What's the other one, is what you're asking immediately. Number 1, ladies and gentlemen, like Adam Driver receiving a casting call for Any Italian Man, it's a go time. We are here, my guys, this is it. The top dog of 2023, which was a year of great films, might I add. Many laughs, many cries, many cries, many cries, many more cries. Yes, I saw All of Us Strangers, I'm still not over it. But no film left me quite as stunned as Jonathan Glazer's Zone of Interest, which... This is an adaptation of the novel of the same name, which is about a Nazi family that live next door to a concentration camp. So the film is a look at their day-to-day life as the horrors of the Holocaust unfold in the periphery. And it is every bit as brutal and stark and startling as that premise may sound to you while I'm saying it. This film is the film of 2023 that I had to go and properly walk off after I saw it. I've been a huge fan of pretty much everything Jonathan Glazer's done, and I love directors that can continue to push their own sort of creative limits or do new things, go to new spaces in each of their films. And Zone of Interest is absolutely that for Jonathan Glazer. Second film on the list that starred Sandra Hüller, so she's been having a little bit of a year, hasn't she? So yeah, that's number 1. I'm sorry, I guess, that the top dog this year was such a challenging and difficult film. Cinema, eh? That's what it does. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're done. 2023. Cracker of a year, to be honest, if I may say so myself, but no doubt you guys had a different list to me, because that's just how these things go. So please do let me know what your 10 favourite films of 2023 were in the comments down below. Let's have a little discussion there, because I bet you watched this and thought, what the bloody hell was that film not doing in there? I probably did see it, just didn't rank it quite as high. There's quite a few films this year that I've seen in other people's top 10s that are like 30 on my list. But don't worry, you can see my entire list of my ranking of 2023 over on Letterboxd. Link is of course in the description down below. Please do go check that out. But please bear in mind that, you know, it's no longer subjective. Mine is the right list. I'm the only one that got it. I'm really sorry to have to deliver that news to you guys. It's just true. Thanks for sticking around, guys. Hope this was a fun watch. I'm probably gonna go and drive myself a little bit crazy in the edit, but before then, I'm gonna actually enjoy this coffee. Now that I finally can. It is freezing.